Hello and welcome to the interview on France 24. My guest today is Nadhim Zahawi, the UK's vaccines minister. Since the inoculation drive got underway in the United Kingdom on the 8th of December, nearly 21 million people have received at least one Covid-19 vaccination. Minister Zahawi, thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Take me back to the drawing board, if you will. What were your orders from the Prime Minister when you got tasked in this role?
Absolutely. Good afternoon. When the Prime Minister asked me to take on the vaccine deployment, I was already the Minister for Business and Industry. The Vaccines Task Force did their excellent work in obviously negotiating vaccine doses with Pfizer, BioNTech, with Oxford AstraZeneca, and the other vaccines that will come online soon. We began in mid-November, really the deployment team come together, both in terms of the National Health Service, our armed forces, logistics brigade, 101 logistics brigade, led by a very capable commander, Commander Phil Prosser, embedded into our healthcare system, as well as, of course, the private sector, both the manufacturing, but also the back-end distribution, because we had to move the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine at minus 70 degrees centigrade. We worked with the back-end distribution for Boots, the chemist, and of course Superdrug and others. And the front end is working with DHL. So it's a combination of both the NHS family, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, all coming together, as well as, of course, our armed forces, the private sector, and most importantly, the army of volunteers. We have 80,000 volunteer vaccinators, 200,000 people volunteer to help people through the vaccination centers and make it as smooth an operation as possible to deploy at scale. We began deploying on the 8th of December with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine in a few hospitals just to make sure the protocols are followed correctly. We then rolled out into our primary care networks. This is the GPs in the UK. 5 or 6 GPs in each primary care network will come together, decide who will lead, and the others will support. And we rolled out hundreds in the first week, now thousands primary care, and the national vaccination centres, our pharmacies, our community pharmacies, as well, playing their part in the overall deployment programme, which you know is moving at pace.
Indeed. Now, unlike many other countries, you opted to space out the first and the second dose of the vaccine. Early data from the UK shows that hospitalizations have been cut by some 80% for people over the age of 70 after a single shot of the Pfizer or the AstraZeneca vaccine. Do you admit that you took a risk that is now paying off?
So I think we're in many ways blessed with one of the best regulators in the world. The MHRA, our regulator in the UK, is world-renowned for their capability to regulate our healthcare industry, our health pharmaceutical industry as well. And they, working with the joint committee, we have a joint committee of scientists, experts on vaccination and immunization, and then the 4 chief medical officers. We have 4 chief medical officers, one for England, one for Scotland, one for Wales, and one for Northern Ireland, all agreed that when they looked at the data from both vaccines, that for public health reasons, it would be much better to space out the dosing interval between first and second dose to up to 12 weeks. You could actually save many, many more lives because, as we have discussed, both Pfizer, BioNTech, and the Oxford AstraZeneca have very high levels of protection. In real world, we had Public Health Scotland data and now Public Health England, that in the real world, they offer very high levels of protection after the first dose, after 3 to 4 weeks of the first dose.
This week, the U.S. announced that they would have enough vaccine doses to inoculate its entire adult population by the end of May. Has a date been set in the United Kingdom? Do you have the supplies you need as well?
Yes, so we have 2 targets. The first target is to vaccinate the over 50s by the middle of April, and we are on target. We have now visibility of supply all the way till the end of April. We have kicked off our supply. And then the second target, which is offer the vaccine to all adults in the United Kingdom by the end of July.
Now, we have had some teething problems with our vaccine rollout here in France. I know the UK had a head start because you rolled out your vaccine early December, and 21 million people have been vaccinated in the United Kingdom with at least one shot versus just 3 million here in France. Are you looking at what's going on here with concern?
So you're absolutely right. We've had 21 million, just shy of 21 million with the first dose, and about under a million who've had first and second dose. And you'll see in March the second dose also beginning to rise because people who had their first dose in January are now due their second dose. Of course, we want to see France and the rest of Europe also do well with vaccination. It's very important to do it together, because not only will we protect our citizens and, of course, begin the process of reopening our economies and our skies together, but also, importantly, and I know this is very important to the president of France, is helping the rest of the world as well together through the COVAX initiative. We have put £540 million already invested in COVAX. We also made sure that the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is available to the low-income and middle-income countries. And I think 300 million doses are being manufactured at no profit to AstraZeneca or Oxford for low and middle-income countries. And we want to see that happen together, because the reality is nobody is safe until we are all safe on the continent of Europe together, but also until we are all safe throughout the whole world, which is why at the G7, my Prime Minister made that commitment, and it was great to see other G7 countries come forward with additional funding, about $4 billion of funding for COVAX.
Let's talk about AstraZeneca for a moment, because back in January, the French president, who you referenced there, said the data suggested that the vaccine was quasi-ineffective on people over the age of 65. Hours later, the European Medicines Agency approved the jab. Then the company and the European Union tussled over delivery commitments. France and Germany restricted the vaccine to people under the age of 65, over the age of 65 rather. That has now been reversed. Everyone can get the AstraZeneca vaccine. What do you make of this back and forth?
Well, I think it's great to see the European Medicines Agency, the European regulator, approve the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. We find it to be an incredibly effective vaccine in the UK. In the real world, as you know, in all vaccine development, of course, trials are incredibly important for safety, efficacy, and large-scale phase 3 trials are important. But until you get into the real world, where you have, millions of people being vaccinated. So if we look at the study from Public Health Scotland, where they did 500,000 people with Oxford AstraZeneca, 500,000 people with Pfizer, and they followed them, they found very high levels. Oxford AstraZeneca offered 94% protection against serious infection and hospitalization, and similarly Pfizer BioNTech as well. So it's great news that the rest of Europe now is seeing the both vaccines, the Oxford AstraZeneca and Pfizer BioNTech, as viable vaccines to protect the people of Europe.
Minister Zahawi, I want to end on a personal note, because I know you moved to the United Kingdom with your family at the age of 11. You sought refuge essentially in the country. As a young boy, did you ever think that you'd play such a vital role in getting the country back on its feet?
When my parents arrived on these shores, you're absolutely right. I was 11 years old. I was fleeing Iraq from a tyrant called Saddam Hussein. And I know France has played a critical role in protecting the Kurdish people. My family are originally Kurdish from Iraq, and France has had a really significant and admirable, including the current president, helping I arrived on these shores unable to speak a word of English. I very quickly picked up the language. I was blessed to go to University College London and study chemical engineering and build a successful business in the UK before entering politics. And now I find myself as the vaccines minister. It is probably the most important job I will ever do for my country, the country that has given me and my family everything. So I'm truly honored and blessed and privileged to have been given this responsibility by my Prime Minister.
A very high-pressured job indeed, Minister Nadhim Zahawi. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on France 24.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching.